The vast expanse of the highway stretched out before me, an endless ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the horizon. As a seasoned trucker, I thought I had seen it all. The haunting loneliness of the open road, the eerie silence of desolate stretches, and the whispered stories exchanged at truck stops. Little did I know, my journey that fateful night would thrust me into a harrowing tale that defied all reason. It was past midnight, and the darkness outside was absolute, swallowing the feeble glow of my truck's headlights. The hum of the agony was my only companion as I pushed through the inky blackness. My radio crackled with static, the signal weak and intermittent, leaving me with nothing but the haunting symphony of the night. As I approached a desolate stretch of road, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. A hitchhiker, seemingly stranded in the middle of nowhere. Against my better judgment, I decided to pull over and offer a ride. The silhouette approached, a haunting stillness accompanying their every step. A chill ran down my spine, but I chalked it up to the desolation of the night. The hitchhiker climbed into the cab, their features obscured by the hood of a tattered jacket. Without uttering a word, they settled into the passenger seat. The oppressive silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the tires against the pavement. I attempted small talk, but the hitchhiker's responses were curt and cryptic. As we ventured deeper into the night, an unsettling sensation crept over me. The landscape outside became increasingly surreal, the shadows morphing into indistinct shapes that seemed to dance at the edge of my vision. My eyes darted to the hitchhiker, whose presence exuded an otherworldly energy that permeated the confines of the truck. Abruptly, the hitchhiker spoke, their voice low and resonant. "Do you hear them?" A question that hung in the air like an ominous premonition. I strained my ears, catching faint whispers carried by the wind. Unsettled, I dismissed it as a trick of my fatigued mind. As the miles rolled by, the whispers outside the truck grew louder, coalescing into a cacophony of disembodied voices. Panic set in as I realized the voices weren't a product of my imagination. They were a chorus of the unseen, an eerie chorus that seemed to echo from the very fabric of the night. The hitchhiker's gaze fixed on me, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly luminescence. "They are the lost souls of the highway," they murmured. My heart raced as the voices outside intensified, their words unintelligible yet laden with a spectral despair. I tried to focus on the road, but the highway seemed to warp and twist, an otherworldly labyrinth that defied logic. Desperation clawed at me as the voices became deafening, their lamentations echoing through the truck's cabin. I begged the hitchhiker for an explanation, but their only response was a cryptic smile. In a surreal twist, the truck's headlights illuminated ghostly apparitions that materialized on the road. Phantom hitchhikers, their faces etched with eternal sorrow, reached out as if seeking salvation. I swerved to avoid them, the truck rattling with an otherworldly energy as I careened through the spectral gauntlet. The hitchhiker's laughter echoed through the chaos, a haunting sound that reverberated in my mind. "You've entered their domain," they intoned, their words carrying the weight of a grim revelation. The highway, once a familiar conduit between destinations, had become a spectral realm, a twilight zone where the living and the dead coexisted in a macabre dance. As the first light of dawn broke on the horizon, the voices outside the truck began to fade. The hitchhiker, their purpose fulfilled, opened the door and stepped out into the fading darkness. The spectral figures on the road dissipated like mist, leaving me alone on the highway, shaken to my core. The truck rumbled along the now ordinary road, the echoes of the supernatural ordeal lingering in the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that the hitchhiker's enigmatic words held a deeper truth, that the highway was a conduit for lost souls seeking solace in the realm between worlds. To this day, the memories of that night haunt me, a chilling reminder that the open road, with all its vastness and solitude, can unravel the fabric of reality, exposing us to the unseen forces that linger in the shadows. The highway, once a lifeline for travelers, became a spectral tapestry where the living and the dead crossed paths, leaving an indelible mark on my journey through the unknown. The hum of the engine reverberated through the night, and the rhythmic dance of the truck's headlights painted a surreal tableau on the deserted highway. I, a lone trucker with countless miles etched into my weary soul, navigated the darkness with an almost mechanical precision. Little did I know that this night would etch a different kind of mark upon my memory, a sinister tale that would forever intertwine my destiny with the haunted stretches of the open road. It was well past midnight when I saw the hitchhiker, a solitary figure standing on the roadside. The world outside was cloaked in an impenetrable darkness, and the sight of another soul, seemingly stranded in the middle of nowhere, sparked a momentary twinge of sympathy within me. Against the nagging voice of caution, I decided to pull over. The hitchhiker climbed aboard, their face obscured by the shadows of a tattered hat. They mumbled a thanks, and I caught a fleeting glimpse of hollow eyes reflecting the dim glow of the dashboard. Something about their presence sent a chill down my spine, but I shrugged it off as a byproduct of the lonely road and offered a polite nod. As we ventured further into the night, the conversation between us remained sparse. The hitchhiker's responses were vague, their words laced with an unsettling ambiguity that only intensified the growing unease in the cabin. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a tunnel of shadows that seemed to close in with each passing mile. Abruptly, the hitchhiker spoke, their voice a low, gravelly whisper that seemed to be carried by the night wind itself. "You've entered the realm of the lost," they said, their words hanging in the air like a malevolent omen. I chuckled nervously, dismissing it as the ramblings of a weary traveler. As we journeyed into the heart of the night, an eerie silence settled between us. The road, once a familiar ally, now seemed to weave a tapestry of dread. I noticed subtle shifts in the landscape, the contours of the hills distorted, the trees assuming grotesque shapes that danced at the periphery of my vision. The hitchhiker's gaze never wavered from the road ahead, as if they were attuned to a reality beyond my comprehension. The radio crackled, the static punctuated by occasional dissonant notes. I fumbled with the dial, attempting to break the oppressive silence, but the hitchhiker's words lingered in my mind. Suddenly, the static coalesced into fragmented whispers, voices of the forgotten, their spectral pleas reaching into the confines of the truck. My hands clenched the wheel as the voices grew louder, their haunting cries echoing through the night. Panic clawed at my chest, but the hitchhiker remained unnervingly calm. "They're drawn to the living," they muttered, their words sinking into the shadows of the cabin like a foreboding incantation. As we traversed a desolate stretch, the hitchhiker pointed toward the horizon. An ethereal glow emanated from a distant graveyard, tombstones standing like spectral sentinels beneath the moonlight. I blinked, my eyes playing tricks on me, or so I desperately wanted to believe. The spectral voices reached a crescendo, and I glimpsed shadowy figures pacing the graveyard, their ghostly forms beckoning to me. I slammed on the brakes, the truck screeching to a halt on the haunted highway. The hitchhiker turned to me, their eyes ablaze with an otherworldly intensity. "The lost souls seek refuge," they declared, their words resonating with a haunting finality. The spectral figures drew nearer, their ethereal hands reaching for the truck as if yearning to escape their eternal torment. In a surge of terror, I slammed the gas pedal, leaving the graveyard of lost souls behind. The hitchhiker's laughter echoed through the night, a sound that seemed to carry far beyond the confines of the truck. The spectral voices faded into the distance, their mournful cries swallowed by the night. As dawn broke on the horizon, I found myself alone on the deserted highway. The hitchhiker had vanished, leaving behind an indelible mark on my memory. The road, once a conduit for solitary journeys, had become a passage into the supernatural, a twilight zone where the living and the lost coexisted in a macabre dance. To this day, the echoes of that night linger in the recesses of my mind. The spectral voices, the haunted graveyard, and the enigmatic hitchhiker, fragments of a horror story that defies explanation. The open road, once a sanctuary for travelers, became a gateway to the unknown, where the lost souls of the highway sought solace in the fleeting moments between darkness and dawn. The night unfolded like a dark tapestry, and the rhythmic hum of my truck's engine served as the unsettling soundtrack to my solitary journey. I had traversed countless miles on this lonesome highway, but this night carried an ominous weight, an invisible burden that clung to the shadows beyond the glow of my headlights. As I navigated the twisting roads, a flash of movement caught my eye, a silhouette standing at the edge of the desolate highway. Against my better judgment, I eased my foot off the accelerator, the truck slowing to a reluctant halt. The hitchhiker emerged from the darkness, a figure cloaked in tattered clothing, their face obscured by the hood of a weathered jacket. "Need a lift?" I called out, the words hanging in the still night air. The hitchhiker nodded in silence, and with an air of weariness, they climbed into the cab. The truck creaked as the door shut, and an uneasy quiet settled between us. The hitchhiker, a specter in my passenger seat, remained shrouded in silence. Attempts at conversation were met with stoic nods or indifferent grunts. My initial discomfort grew into a gnawing unease as we ventured deeper into the inky darkness. The highway seemed to stretch into eternity, each mile more desolate than the last. I stole a glance at the hitchhiker. Their gaze was fixed on the road ahead, devoid of any emotion. The eerie quiet persisted, interrupted only by the monotonous drone of the engine. The air within the cabin grew thick with tension, an unspoken anticipation that hung like a pallor. Breaking the silence, the hitchhiker muttered, "You ever hear the tales of this stretch of road?" The words slithered into my consciousness, and I shook my head, unsure of what dark narrative I was about to be entangled in. The hitchhiker's lips curled into a wry smile, and they began recounting stories, tales of truckers who vanished into the night, of spectral hitchhikers seeking rides to the afterlife. A shiver ran down my spine, a primal instinct warning me of the malevolence that lurked in the periphery. I dismissed the stories as mere folklore, the fabrications of a wandering mind. But the air inside the truck grew colder, and an unsettling presence seemed to envelop us. As the road twisted and turned, the hitchhiker's stories became increasingly sinister. They spoke of a phantom truck that materialized from the mist, its headlights piercing through the darkness like the eyes of a vengeful spirit. I glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the haunting glow of those phantom headlights tailing us. The hitchhiker's tone grew more urgent, their words carrying an unseen weight. "We're not alone on this road," they whispered, their eyes staring into the blackness beyond the windshield. A chill settled in my bones as the highway, once a familiar ally, transformed into a realm where the living and the dead converged. Abruptly, the truck's engine sputtered, a discordant melody of mechanical distress. Panic set in as the headlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the asphalt. I tried to reassure myself with thoughts of a malfunctioning engine, but the hitchhiker's cryptic warnings echoed in my mind. The truck came to an abrupt stop, the engine sputtering into silence. I attempted to restart it, but the vehicle remained lifeless, as if swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The hitchhikers stared out into the night, their eyes fixated on an unseen presence that seemed to encircle us. A distant sound echoed through the stillness, the haunting moan of a distant truck's horn. My eyes widened with realization as the spectral headlights materialized in the rearview mirror. The phantom truck, a harbinger of doom, drew closer with each agonizing second. The hitchhiker turned to me, their eyes ablaze with an unearthly intensity. "This is where our paths diverge," they declared, their voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. In an instant they vanished, leaving me alone in the silent truck, surrounded by the encroaching darkness. The phantom truck drew alongside, its spectral form casting an ethereal glow. A ghostly figure materialized in the driver's seat, their eyes meeting mine with a hollow gaze. The mournful wail of the horn crescendoed, and with an otherworldly force, the phantom truck surged forward, disappearing into the night. As dawn broke on the horizon, the truck's engine miraculously roared back to life. The specter of the hitchhiker lingered in my memory, a haunting reminder of the night the highway became a conduit to the supernatural. I continued my journey, the road stretching ahead like an endless ribbon of uncertainty, forever marked by the trucker horror story that went awry.